Florida is a territory where modern civilization and prehistory fight a silent, daily battle for control of the damp soil. Beneath neon lights and elevated highways pulses an ecosystem that seems to instinctively reject human presence with lethal violence. It is not just a state. It is a convergence zone where predators of all kinds have found the perfect environment to thrive. Imagine walking through a manicured suburb with a flawless lawn, while the ornamental pond hides yellow eyes that never blink. The danger in Florida is not just in the dark city alleys, but in the very water that laps against the backyards of average families. It is a fragile pact of coexistence, where humans try to ignore that they built their homes atop a sanctuary of ancient, hungry beasts. The peninsula's subtropical climate acts like a giant greenhouse, providing the heat necessary for massive species to grow without limits. Unlike the north, where winter imposes a biological pause, Florida's wildlife remains in a state of permanent alert and constant hunting. The relentless heat accelerates reptile metabolisms, making them more active, more aggressive, and consequently, much more dangerous to humans. The Everglades is the beating heart of this biological chaos, a labyrinth of grass and water serving as the continent's largest nursery for monsters. It is a vast expanse of land that man has never managed to fully tame, despite aggressive drainage and urbanization attempts. The swamp breathes and expands, sending its scaly emissaries to investigate the new drainage canals that cut through modern cities. American alligators are the undisputed kings of these canals, having survived for millions of years in an environment that punishes weakness. They do not see fences or walls as barriers, but as mere obstacles in their constant search for territory or an easy, unsuspecting prey. For a Florida resident, finding a 10-foot reptile in the garage is a real possibility that both terrifies and fascinates at the same time. But local nature is not just dealing with its native predators. It is being invaded by foreign and deadly monsters. Burmese pythons, introduced through the exotic pet trade, have become the ultimate nightmare for local ecosystems and public safety. With no natural predators at the top of the chain, these giant snakes are devouring everything that crosses their silent path in the green depths. Investigation into the proliferation of these snakes reveals a biological warfare scenario where man has totally lost control over the territory. They hide in dense vegetation, capable of taking down deer and even adult alligators in brutal combats that last 4 hours in the thick marsh. The fear of these snakes reaching dense urban areas is a reality that keeps authorities in a state of constant and tense watch. It is not just the fresh waters that harbor danger. The Florida coast is known worldwide as the capital of shark attacks. Warm currents and an abundance of fish bring these predators very close to swimmers in the shallow waters of New Smyrna Beach. The contrast between tourist fun and the risk of a fatal bite is a trademark of the dangerous experience. On the sunny coast, bull sharks, known for their aggression and ability to swim in fresh water, travel up rivers and canals, bringing terror to neighborhoods. It is an instinct-driven invasion where the barriers between the ocean and the backyard pool seem to vanish under the peninsula's high tide. Florida is the only place where you can be attacked by a shark while walking along the bank of a seemingly quiet residential canal. The proximity between humans and beasts generates police records that defy logic, with wild animals invading kitchens and bedrooms in urban areas. These are not just isolated incidents, but a result of population pressure from both sides leading to inevitable and bloody confrontations. With every new construction, wildlife territory shrinks, forcing animals to seek food where the human scent is strongest and most frequent. Florida's transparency laws ensure that every one of these close encounters is recorded in videos and detailed reports for the world. We see images of officers wrestling giant snakes in bathrooms, or removing alligators from busy highways in the middle of a hot, humid. This constant exposure feeds the state's reputation as a place where nature still maintains a brutal superiority over the fragile human order. Biologists explain that the network of artificial canals built to drain the state served as a perfect highway for predator dispersal. These water paths connect the deep swamp directly to urban centers, allowing wildlife to move undetected beneath the surface. What was meant to protect homes from flooding ended up facilitating the silent invasion of species that modern man tried to push away. The economic and social cost of living with this constant threat is high, requiring specialized capture teams working without rest. There are thousands of annual calls to deal with beasts acting according to their ancestral and violent nature amidst luxury condominiums. The population lives in a state of vigilance that shapes the behavior of children, who are taught never to play near the water's edge. The introduction of invasive species, like the monitor lizard, adds layers of toxicity and danger to an environment already saturated with lethal threats. These animals do not just compete with local fauna, they represent real risks to pets and even to unsuspecting children. Florida has become a massive Darwinian laboratory, where only the most adaptable and aggressive manage to survive the environmental chaos. The stress of living in a conflict zone with nature generates a collective paranoia manifested in increasingly complex security systems. Electric fences and night vision cameras are used to detect scaly shadows moving in the darkness of humid tropical nights. The fear of being the next victim of an animal attack is a constant footnote in the lives of those who chose the peninsula as home. There is an aura of real horror when we realize we are vulnerable to attacks that have not changed in millions of years of evolution. An alligator's bite or a rattlesnake's strike are reminders of our physical fragility in the face of predators that feel no remorse. In Florida, the social contract does not include nature, which continues to follow its own laws of blood, hunger, and territorial dispute. The psychological impact of witnessing the raw power of these animals alters the perception of safety within one's own residence and neighborhood. The sound of a snapping branch gains a much more sinister meaning when you know exactly what might be hiding there in the shadows. Suburban tranquility is a thin mask for a tension that never fully disappears, especially after the sun sets over the cities. Authorities admit it is impossible to eradicate these threats, and the only viable solution is learning to coexist with the imminent danger. Awareness programs try to teach the population not to feed the animals, a common mistake that removes the beast's natural fear of humans. When a predator loses its fear of man, it becomes a time bomb that will eventually explode in a fatal and inevitable attack. Florida's history is punctuated by tragic attacks that changed laws and reinforced the need for physical barriers between man and the swamp. Every death caused by a wild animal reignites the debate over unchecked urban expansion into areas that rightfully belong to the wild. Yet, the real estate market keeps advancing, ignoring the warnings that nature itself sends through its sharp teeth and claws. Accident investigators describe scenes reminiscent of hunting documentaries, but occurring in locations like golf courses and crowded malls. The presence of an apex predator in a civilized environment creates a mental short-circuit that paralyzes victims at the critical moment of attack. Nature does not ask for permission. It simply occupies the space offered to it, whether a remote marsh or a planned garden. The mystique of Florida is intrinsically linked to this savagery, attracting people who irresponsibly seek contact with danger. Adventure tourism exploits this proximity, taking motorboats into the heart of alligator territory for dangerous and sometimes fatal photo ops. This commercialization of risk trivializes real danger, making many underestimate the speed and strength of an enraged wild animal. Florida's waters are like a mirror reflecting our desire to master the untamable and the terrible price we pay for it. Every attack is a reminder that we are not the owners of the land, but merely temporary tenants in a territory holding brutal memories. The danger is real, it is constant, and it is waiting for a single moment of distraction or overconfidence by a human being. We observe a state that has become a biological battlefield, where man tries to maintain order against a tide of primitive instincts. There is no definitive solution to the problem of dangerous animals, only an armed and vigilant truce that can break at any second. The sun shines on the water, but the shadows beneath the surface are deep, ancient, and always moving in a silent, calculating way. Investigation of the fauna reveals that the real horror is not the animal's existence, but our insistence on living so close to them. We built our lives atop an ecosystem designed for hunting and the survival of the fittest in the food chain. Now we reap the fruits of that risky decision, where the bizarre and the dangerous are two sides of the same coin in a chaotic state. The swamp will keep producing its beasts, and the sea will keep sending its sharks to the shores of our cities built upon the sand. The Florida phenomena is a story of mutual invasion when neither side is willing to retreat or cede important territory. We are left to watch, with a mix of dread and fascination, this forced coexistence between modern man and the scaly ancient monster. Sirens and screams will continue to be the soundtrack of hot nights where nature decides to collect its price for our intrusion. There are no fences high enough to keep fear out when the enemy can swim or crawl over any physical barrier. Flora is the ultimate reminder that nature does not forgive human error, and does not recognize our supposed technical superiority. Every captured alligator is just a small victory in a war that man can never definitively win in the depths of the swamp. Florida's wildlife is resilient and possesses a patience that human civilization, in its haste, we'll never truly understand or master. Their time is measured in geological eras, hours in passing headlines. And on that scale, the advantage always goes to the watching beasts. Cameras will continue to record the bizarre encounter between our routine and the purest, most devastating animal instinct on Earth. Do not look for logic in a predator's aggression. Look for the security flaw that allowed it to get so close to your comfort zone. Flora teaches us that danger needs no invitation. It simply seizes the opportunities we leave open in our vigilance. The legacy of these lands will always be marked by beings that remind us where we came from and how short life can be. The beauty of the tropical landscape hides the death lurking beneath lily pads and inside hollow trees in the dark mud. Whoever chooses to live in Florida accepts the risk of becoming part of the food chain that governs the state absolutely and cruelly. The warm waters continue to attract those seeking peace, but they deliver a horror that scars the soul for a lifetime. Coexisting with dangerous animals is the final chapter of our attempt to domesticate the wild world in our own current image. The result is a hybrid of city and jungle, where the danger of death is as common as the heat of the midday sun. Nature's documentary in Florida never ends. It simply renews itself with every new invasive species that finds paradise in the humid peninsula. Balance is an illusion we maintain to sleep, while the swamp whispers hunting secrets just outside our windows. Florida is real. The danger is palpable, and nature never stopped watching our every step in its ancestral and wild territory. The question remains, how long can we maintain this psychological barrier between our comfort and the savagery surrounding us? Perhaps the bizarreness comes from this very tension, knowing that death has scales and is swimming in the canal right in front of the house. This is the price of living in the Sunshine State, always being one step away from becoming the next great story of survival or death. Keep your eyes on the waterline and never assume you are alone in a yard or on a porch in the Central Florida region. Biological darkness does not need the night to strike. It manifests under the scorching sun, without warning and without any human mercy. This is the kingdom of predators, where the sun sets, but the hunt remains eternal and indifferent to the technology that tries to ignore it. What you have just heard is the account of a frontier that never closed, where the wild and the urban collide daily.